Okay, guys, our third plant of the day is another Quercus, Quercus parvula, and this one has a variety name. So there are actually three named varieties for parvula. In California, there's parvula variety parvula, which is a shrub in the Channel Islands. Then there's two others on the mainland, parvula variety Shrevii, and parvula variety Tamalpaiensis. I'm just going to tell you, I have some maybe weird ideas about oaks, but I just don't believe, I just don't believe it. I don't believe that there really are two different lineages of parvula here, and there's just one that lives here on Mount Tamalpais, because I've seen a lot of these parvulas on the coast, and they live basically from central coastal California up through Santa Cruz, up here to Marin County, and I'm just don't believe there's really much in the way of difference. So I'm not going to have you learn the name Tamalpaiensis, even though it is in the books. I'm going to stick with Shrevii. Shrevii is a name for a taxon that is can be shrubby or a small tree, and it lives on the mainland California. Parvula Shrevii, I guess the common name is Shreve's oak. So we can use that if you want. And it's a very close relative to Quercus agrifolia. It's in the black or red oak group. So we've learned white oaks, we've learned golden cup oaks, and now I'm going to tell you something about black oaks. Black oaks have acorns caps that have overlapping scales. So instead of the warty protuberances, they have a bunch of overlapping flat scales. And to me, it looks a lot like dog claws that are kind of trimmed. So trimmed dog claws is what I think of when I see these black oak acorn cups. Okay, so remember, Quercus agrifolia has glossy underside of the leaf that reflects light, and this is the same. So that's a good characteristic for this group of species. And there are three that are of species that are really closely related to each other. We have Quercus agrifolia, Quercus parvula, and Quercus wislezenii, which we'll learn at Mount Diablo. And they all have this characteristic of the underside being glossy green and reflecting the light. So now I'm going to tell you how to separate this species. And actually there's kind of two things that you're going to need to know. But one is most of the leaves are flat rather than cupped. You can see there's a little bit of cuppage on a couple of these leaves, but by and large, the leaves are flat. They would not be good for dipping into nacho cheese dip. Most of the dip would just run right off these leaves, and you would be kind of unsatisfied. And that's one. And then the other one is the margins are generally entire. Okay. And then I'll give you a third one. The shape of the leaf is generally kind of elliptical and coming to kind of a triangular point at the leaf. Kind of a, whereas Quercus agrifolia are generally more, I don't know, kind of more oval in shape generally. And remember, they have those spine-tipped margins and are generally cupped. So the thing that everyone always gets really frustrated about is that there's gene flow between Quercus agrifolia and Quercus parvula. And so you get individuals, and we'll see on the trail today, that are somewhat intermediate between the two. You'll see some that have kind of half-cupped leaves, or some that maybe have somewhat spiky margins. And so just try not to get frustrated by that. And I think we'll have a lecture on Wednesday, maybe coming up in a few weeks, where we'll talk a little bit about what a species is and why you shouldn't really get frustrated about it, because these guys, maybe what I like to think of is these are lineages that are somewhat, they may be diverging, and then they may be coming together at different times. And what we'll talk about is how California is always is undergoing these glacial cycles over the last 2 million years. And so species of plants are tracking habitats, and they're kind of getting put back together and then pulled apart, and then they are adapting to their local conditions. And so, in this case, maybe speciation isn't complete, or maybe it's never going to happen, and that's why you get these intermediate characteristics. Okay, the third thing I want to say, or maybe fourth or the fifth thing I want to say, is about you have to know where you are when you are identifying these oaks. So, Quercus agrifolia is a coastal oak, right? It's called coast live oak. It lives from San Diego or maybe even Baja California all the way up to close to the Oregon border, but it's always going to be kind of close to the coast. Parvula is also a coastal oak, okay? It co-occurs with Quercus agrifolia. Quercus wizlazeni, which we'll learn, is an interior oak, and you're not going to find Quercus wizlazeni at the coast. It gets to the East Bay Hills, only the driest parts of the East Bay Hills, so it will co-occur rarely with Quercus agrifolia, but only a little bit, only in sort of the easternmost part of the Quercus agrifolia range and the westernmost part of the wizlazeni range, because Quercus wizlazeni is more of a kind of a foothill of the Sierras oak. But okay, not to confuse you anymore, this is Quercus parvula, variety, I'm calling it Shrevii, and it is your Shreve's oak. It is a small tree or a shrub with flat leaves that reflect light, that are glossy green on the underside, that have kind of generally a pointy tip and entire margins. And that's all she wrote.